We had Andrew's gun, that's the one that George shot the 6 bucks with. Pow! The deer stayed standing there and looking. I don't know what someone else they shot too. Same damn deer never moved. I said, what the hell's going on here? Bang! Down it went. Great big doe. So we gutted it out and hung it in a Christmas tree, and I think Christmas vacation, Fred come up here and dragged it home. That's probably the only doe that I shot with the 30-30. There was a year or two you only dared shoot does or spike buck, and I got a spike buck, so I didn't even shoot a doe that year. But down home I shot a few with them. Violated a few with the shotgun.
What was the logic there, Bud, with shooting only the does and the spikes? Is that just to let the deer get bigger?
Well, yeah, I guess they wanted to get the does shot off. If they allowed you to shoot a buck, you know, we were buck hunters. That's what you had drilled in you all your life. You were a buck hunter. Mm-hmm. And it was hard. Well, today it's hard for me to shoot a doe with the rifle. I can shoot them with a bow and arrow and I won't blink an eyeball, but to go up and shoot a doe with a rifle, that's almost a sin. So, but I think it was, they made us shoot does. You wanted the deer, you had to shoot does. There were those of us didn't shoot no doe, if you had a choice. That was, I think it was only 1 year they pulled that on us, that we had to shoot a doe. But it was always that 4-corn buck too, not spikes.
When did they put the addition onto the Smith block?
Oh golly, I don't know, that's one of the last projects that Harry done when he was living in.
72.
He framed that all up at home and hauled it up here on the trailer and set her up. That went up fast. Boy, then we thought we had a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Paneled it all and insulated it.
What year, Bud, did they have where they kind of ruined the hunting with the big doe? Split season or something?
That was, I think that was the first time they started hammering does. And I don't know if
50? Really 50s?
maybe 48 or so. I think it was before 50.
Where there was a different season north of 8, wasn't it?
Well, after we had that first crack at the does, there was closed over 8. It was closed over the road out here. You could only shoot from this way in does. But I couldn't say the year, but it's the late 40s. It could have been it could have been 50 even.
In the early 50s, we had even in the mid 50s, we had a bunch of doe seasons in there.
Yeah, well, then
we had one of them where they opened up a week early north of 8th.
Yeah.
And we had a slew of people coming from all over.
I know on the
extra week ahead.
On the first one, Christ, everybody and his mother's uncle was coming up here and getting a deer. I know Art Schneider came up. I don't think he ever even owned a gun. He wasn't here. Fred went out down here by the first goddamn slough and shot a fawn and dragged it out, and Art was on his way home. He had a deer. And then that's when we got our first scrap within the cabin. Herman come up with Gillis and Dr. Olette, and Well, everybody was looking for a ride, you know, the tires, gas, everything was racing. And if you could get a ride up here, you came up with somebody you could get driving. Anyway, Jack Linsmeyer sent his daughter up here. I don't know where in the hell he was gonna put his daughter those days. Anyhow, he got up here and the cabin was full of people. He was pissed off. He got a ride up with his brother-in-law, Chris Tanshoot, I think. And right away he turns around and puts his share up for sale. He gets the hell out of it. Then he built down at Carter. I don't know how many deer they took out of here that year. And we had a good buck year. I think that was the year we had a good buck year too. Probably. You remember that big spike Kreml caught? Or not spike, forkhorn? It was a full rack and all it had was a fork on. But they took a pile of deer out that first. Everybody done it. I don't care where you went, it was the same thing. It didn't take the state long to find out that they had to tighten that up. Then they got, you had to buy it, you could buy the license and come up, or you could shoot the deer and run to the store and buy a license so you could put a tag on. But they got wise to that in a hurry, and then they got, I think you had to wait 3 days or what the heck before you could tag a deer. But they were getting, the whole family was getting deers. The wife and the kids and what all. But we paid the price for it. They knocked the hell out of them, and when it seems that any game, when the population goes down, it's a long road back. It seems it doesn't make any headway, even as much as you've tried to protect them. They don't take a hold. So I think Herman is the oldest hunter that ever hunted in this crew.
How many years you got in, huh?
34.
How many?
34 since 1934.
Since 1934.
Going on 60. That's a problem.
And he shot a lot of bucks right over here in the hardwood. Right about in where he's standing now. Maybe down a
Now a
little.
little further in now.
I don't know how many years he put in there, but that Herman had his buck every year. I think he was there when Bob started coming up, and he was still slamming him there. But as long as any stand stayed good, that I know that for years and years, because it usually changes.
Yeah, for a good many years, we all used to go in and look for that old slingshot tree. That was where
Had a board nailed on
that
it.
stand was.
At least until they logged here. Then that changed it. That time it was logged, the popple was logged across the road here. That changed things around. But they always like to come across and follow that edge of the hardwood along the popple down there. Then you got down about by the deer tree, and that, well, they still do. They cross over to the Highland Swamp, always.
I don't know where they're going this year. I don't know.
Well, this logging here and then the bulldozing this
Yeah, I
summer
think-
changed this whole damn thing
Yeah.
out here on us. So if we hang around long enough, Herman,
Yeah.
it'll make
Come
the
back
full
around.
circle.
Yeah.
Where was your favorite spot to hunt?
Mine,
Yeah.
I had no favorite spot. if I shot a buck in a spot, I never got there again because there was about 25 guys occupied it.
Still kind of holds true today lots of times.
But there was a part of the country you like to go and hunt at? You enjoy it?
Well, I think I would have preferred the hemlocks over by Schumann's. That the scenery was the nice. Maybe it was different than anything we had around here when you got over in the hemlocks. Other than that, I shot deer all over. I only remember it when I hit those spots today. And we always walked. We probably worked, well, I and Fred and Harry and Bob Eisenreich, we worked the same territory, and we'd meet maybe like noon, like at the Rock or someplace, but we hunted alone. And when I jumped, maybe run onto one of them, if they jumped, maybe run onto me. And when we drove, if I was young then, I always liked to get on the drive, because I shot more bucks on the drive than the standards ever shot. But you had to be quick. But the woods was different then. You could see, even here in the Popple, you could jump a deer and get one or two cracks at him. Fairly decent shooting. Which today you go out here, that I don't know if I'd been fast enough even in those days. And good eyes. I never had problems see horns. I remember once we made a drive over there by along the marsh going towards Spencer's, and I was out probably as farthest down by the marsh, and George Eisen, which I didn't know, or we didn't know where he was that day, but he was sitting on one of them knobs up by Spencer's Cut, and I jumped the fork-horned buck, and pow, down he goes. And I started gutting him out, and here comes George. Jesus Christ, he says, I was watching that deer all morning. I couldn't see no horns, and he had binoculars. I couldn't see no horns. Andrew, he always seen a lot of deer. He was a good hunter, but I don't think he catch those doggone horns, you know, on the spike. Sure, you see a rack like that, but if you wanted to see deer, you just go this way down to the potholes. You could sit 15 minutes on the first slough and you'd see a deer feeding through any time of the day. None. If you want to show somebody a deer, take them down there and sit them on the side of the hill for 15, 20 minutes and you'd see a deer. This was always known doe hole down here. I shot one across there where Randy is, but down below where the road is toward the hill, a little 4, 5, 6 pointer, and he fell right in the goddamn crotch of, I don't know, it was a maple or basswood tree. We have the damnedest time to lift him out of there. I hit him in the heart, you know, and he'd like to take off 90 miles an hour, and he jumped in that crotch and collapsed. We had one hell of a time to raise that goddamn deer out of that. I shot we had a fresh snow and we went over there, and I walked Doyle's Ridge north, and then I up to the Rock, and then I took the other one back to the south. And on the south end of the ridge, in there by Spencer's, was quite a few evergreens. Oh, and that was full of deer tracks, you know, just steaming. But I didn't see no deer. Well, it was tick. So I went out and I hit the main ridge, and I started along the ridge, you know, and I'd stop and look. I stopped there once and I looked. Jesus, here comes a great big buck on the west side of the ridge along the bottom. Up, damn snow was hanging on the trees, and maybe it was 60, 70 yards down there. He stopped, and I let one fly, and I didn't see no deer no more. But he was on the other side of the tree, and he turned and he went right straight away. I never picked him up. I went down there and looked what the hell wasn't wrong with it. I shot in the goddamn tree. I didn't shoot at the buck. So I followed him a little ways to see where he went. He was right away down in the Spencer. So I come back and I crawled that ridge about the same place. I got on top and I looked on the other side. There was 3 does and an underbuck, just about like the one I got away on me. But he didn't get away that one. He went laid down. I got him mounted. He's in the entrance with his head down.
Yep.
That's where he was shot. Yeah. And that pretty good shot on him too, because that guy in the Milwaukee bunch, he trailed me around all over. I went and he paced it off. I think he said it was close to 200 paces down there, you know, which is a long ways in the hardwood to shoot. But first crack, I broke his back. He was down. But the dumbest thing happened to me, that same doggone ridge, it was in the morning, Horning shot a nice buck over there by the cranberry marsh, and me and Jack Linsmeyer helped him drag it home. We was in Wallow yet. And then we went back in the afternoon, we were going to drive anyway, and we shot the buck on the drive anyway. But we couldn't find the guys. There was somebody driving up back to Spencer's. They must have been on the Goodman gradient on one of them spurs, but we didn't think our gang was over there so well. We posted, Horning crawled in someplace, I don't know where. Anyway, Jack was on the east ridge and I was on the west one. And about 3:30, here comes a guy. That's the biggest damn bear I ever seen in my life. Come up and crossed the ridge north of me and stood with his head behind the tree, but I had his shoulders. And I didn't miss those days. But I'd be goddamn, I don't think I hit that bear. And he dug out and went down the ridge and run past it. Linsmeyer, and he shot 2, 3 times and then he didn't get nothing either. But I tell you, when they put her in high gear, they can roll. That's just like, he was zipped down and out. But that was a monster bear. I could relate him to about a 500-600 pound pig. I don't know, maybe I got the buck fever, I don't know. But I didn't hit him, I don't know what the hell I hit. Maybe there was no bullet, no slug in the bullet, I don't know. He should have got her. And then another time, while Ray was here, they jumped one back in Spencer's, and I was sitting over on off the ridge from Doyle's. There's a big hill in there. When you get off the main ridges, there's a hill in there, and you can look down toward that marsh where Jack sits. And I was sitting on that, and they was shooting up there, and all at once he was a little one. He went, he was maybe 150 yards from me. I shot at him, but running like a bat out of hell, but I never touched him. Them the only 2 chances that we seen, that I seen bear years ago. They were rare. If anybody come up here and seen a sign of a bear, we talked about that bear sign for the next 5 years. I think you came up one summer and you seen a sow or cubs up the tree here.
I think we did, yeah.
I think I remember that we did, but other than that, there wasn't no bear out here. The only ones, the Clivers over here one year, one of their guys down in the pothole shot I think he shot the sow with the 2 cubs on a sunny afternoon. One of the early years we were here. Other than that, there was no bear shot around here. You could shoot them like rabbits. You didn't need no. It's just you were in gun season. You were in the woods with a rifle, but you could have hunted them, I guess, any time of year you wanted. Nobody gave a damn for a bear. or before that, they used to trap them. And then they'd sell them to the downstate hunters that come up here and buy a bear and take home a trophy home. Some kind of trap. Yeah, in the early years there was no beaver on that pond down there either. Never no beaver there. They came in later. They were there before sometime. You know, the dams was there and that, but there was no beaver working it. So I guess I told you about all I can think of. Herman maybe can add a few stories.
Not much of
You know.
No, that's pretty good.
The, my folks and Fred Hosey and a couple of the neighbors out there used to come up here in the fall. They'd hunt birds. And the women, they planted them trees out here. The whole damn row, there's only a couple left. They pulled them out in the field over there. Harry or McLean had planted, and they brought them in here and planted them. So that's a remembrance of them yet. Plattons and Ashmans and Mary Hornick. They come up here. Birds, I don't think you guys are never gonna see the birds that we had here. And Pete can attest to that too. I guess he's gone with that. Him and Carl Wagner and Norman Platten.
Norman,
I don't know, they came up here, I think they had a case of shells, and the next, on Saturday and I think Sunday, they were running out the fence buying some more bullets. But you'd raise them in oh hell, 10, 15 in a bunch. All you do, we walked from here, out, took the road up to the hardwood and back, and you'd kick just as many on the way back as you kicked going out the first time, shooting them right and left. Once I'd come in with me and Fred, nobody was in here yet, the grass was that high. And I rode the fender, and we turned somewhere in, coming into here, and there was a padre sitting, I could see it. He stopped and I shot, and I picked him for nothing to it. That's hunting. That's birds when they're that. It scared the hell out of you deer hunting. And when they started, in the evening, they'd be roosting in the trees, and when they'd start flying, there was no end to them. Brrr, 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 away they'd go. And they weren't nearly as wild as they're today either. Sometimes they sat long enough for you to shoot them. And they had, Fred had, a guy named Joe Linsmeyer and Billy Matushak. And by the way, they helped lay the block. Matushak's helped lay the block that day. We laid them here in the blockhouse. And then Joe Linsmeyer would walk along, you know, and the patters go, brrr! He'd get the gun up, but he get him fired. Billy Matushak was different. They went up, pow! And Billy says, "Ah, damn, I don't know that Joe, if he's ever going to shoot a patridge." And Joe says, you're no different. Well, Billy says, if I shoot long enough, I'm going to hit one. If I shoot long enough, I'm going to hit one, but you ain't going to get none.
what is Wawa? Where did that get its name from?
Well, that's with the Beeler boys. You know, they made drives down there, and a lot of drives. You know, it was like dogs. You know,
Mhm.
all day down there they were going,
Okay.
and they didn't go very far when they made a drive. Anyway, they got always twisted up. I know. I don't know who was down there. One of our guys, and he could overhear them. They just finished the drive, and the one guy. He come out where they had the cars parked, and he didn't know. He didn't recognize their cars. He says, well, where the hell did these cars come from? But we give them time. They learned a little bit about the country. They even got brave enough to go across the creek in the end.
Yeah, for a number of years there, they had little signs in the later years with Porcupine Castle.
Yeah, well, that was the Ashman boys. That's our neighbors from down home. Then, yeah, Fred, they sold that out to the Ashmans. And then they brought their crew. They weren't no hunters at all. But anyway, they came up here and they bought that. There was so damn many porcupines down in that hardwood there, buddy. So you couldn't go by the shooting that they had down there that they were shooting deer, because they were shooting porcupines all day. Before they started hunting, they had to clear all the porcupines out. And any time of the week, you'd hear blasting over there, and they were shooting porcupines. You can't believe the porcupines. There was one for every other damn tree down there at one time. Gee, they were thick. And that old shack was nothing but a porcupine den. It always was.
Mm-hmm.
They got under the floor, you know, and it was built kind of on the side of the hill and built into the ground. And the damn porcupines, every time you got up there, you had a hell of a mess to clean up. They'd chew a hole from the bottom up, and they were in it. Well, they couldn't get in the door. The window would be broke or whatever. Yeah.
Whoever used the tar paper shack down here?
That's when they logged.
Logs.
The first time they cut popple down in there toward the dam, there was one guy lived there all the time, and he had the horse. There was a horse barn there too at one time, and then they used the horse to skid the popple and the pulp links out. And they had a little thing they called it gray. It was a Y, a tree, a Y, and then it was turned up. They looked for that kind of a tree, you know, that was, and then across the Y here, they bolted a cross piece on there with some pegs on it, and they laid a pulpwood sticks on that, and then that single part that stuck out in front they hitched the horse on, see, and that was kind of a sleigh. And that's how they hauled them out with one horse. Maybe 4 or 5 of them, you know, how you could chain them with one chain. They'd all tie in there, and you drag them out with a horse. Then that's how they used to snake them out with that. And that's how that got there. When the very first time they cut the pulp in there, they were taken out with that way in them hills down there, and they logged all the way down to the beaver dam, that whole damn country. But they didn't cut as close as they cut today, you know. When they got done, a few years later, you didn't know other than the trails that they had in there, then you didn't know they logged it.
There used to be horse barns right here on the horseshoes, didn't there?
Yeah, there was that same thing over here, just across the road. And here there was I don't know which one. Them were kind of horseshoes in. You know, you walked in and out, and you came back out on the road. And one of them had the horse barn in there, where they kept the horse. There was a horse barn here too one time.
My blind is where that road goes around.
Yeah, we used
go
to-
right by the horse barn.
We used to, when it was in the old shack, we used to use this horse barn here as a toilet. You know, pole and you hung your rear end over the pole, did your thing.
Yeah, around these blind there a little ways, there used to be a shack up in there, and they cut wood there too. I remember Randy's blind is over there across.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was Doyle's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when they built that, but I wasn't hunting here, but I was coming up in the fall when they built that. They worked there, I think, 2 years before they started logging, and they didn't put one winter in. They were out. They wasn't broke or what. They could put wrong. You know.
They used to have one. On that, that goes around there. Well, and that's right around these blind. There used to be one there years ago when they first cut a lot of wood back in there. They had them log piles up toward the swamp there. But
Yeah, and Spencer's cut the end of logs piled up pretty good. How far to the west did you hunt, Bud? Did you get all the way up to Morgan Lake? Not that far?
No, not from here. When we went across the Schumann's, we hunted beyond Morgan Creek, which empties into Morgan Lake. But from here to we never we go down to Lund's cabin, and then that out through in here we hunted that, but we didn't go beyond that. But from Schumann's there we went back up to.
I never was over there since Schumann's got that.
You never was over there? Well, be worth a trip over there for you.
How long has Reisner's cabin been in there?
Oh,
About as long or not that long?
oh, I would say it went in there about the middle 40s, thereabouts. See, they had our first cabin was out here on Tower Road, and they got in a scrap out there, and somebody burnt them out. And then they bought down in here and built the block shack. And they weren't down there too long, maybe 10 years, I don't know. I run into them a couple times. They had everything blazed to hell down in there too. You'd hit one of those goddamn trails and you follow, you never knew where you was coming up. Every ridge in the swamp where Scott is sitting had a trail blazed on it. And you took the right one, eventually it took you back to your cabin, but you took the long one, you're running all over it. But they weren't there that long then. I don't know if they got old or what, but they were old. I guess they got old. They were probably, well, Fred knew the Reisners because one of them was a salesman, cheese supply salesman. And he ended up in a tavern in Shawnee. So Fred knew them, and that's why we knew what they were doing, because, that salesman would stop and tell them what.
Schumann Dick always said that he'd bring a pig up from down below and he'd have a buck or two shots for him before
Yeah,
season.
I remember hearing Dick tell that,
Yeah, and they would trade the pig for
Trade a
a
pig
buck or two.
for a buck, yeah. I don't think they were the world's greatest hunters, I don't know. One of them got over the creek back there. I see where he used to stand sometimes. He kind of took one of my stands over where I used to stop off there. I used to sit on sometimes on the south, take a five on that big chocolate drop in there off of Doyle's on the south side, and then I could see down to the evergreens. I could have shoot, 200 yards to the evergreens down by that creek down there. And I shot him. That's where I shot that spike buck the year I was supposed to shoot does. I was sitting in that damn hole I had there, and the buck come bounding through. Somebody jumped him and he was real close. The next year I went back there and one came from the back over the hill, up the hill, and I heard him coming. I didn't know what it was, you know, but you can't see over the hill, and the son of a gun, he got up there pretty damn close and all. And he got away on me. I didn't get a crack at him at all. He was a buck too. Then I didn't sit there no more. I had to get a different place. He outsmarted me that time. And then Teddy come up one year, and that's over there on the ridge where there's a kind of a cut in that hill on the west ridge there. And that they used to come through that damn cut going over to Spencer's back and forth in that hardwood there. And Teddy was up there with a 12-gauge shotgun. He burned a lot of ammunition that one opening day over there. He didn't put none down though. I think he still got that habit today.
I was just gonna say, sounds kind of
I hope
so
he's sleeping,
familiar.
but he shot at the deer, but he didn't do such good hitting. Then the first year after he come home from the service, he bought that one he's got, that rifle, that pump. He was gonna fix him with that, you know. And it was over there too in that country, on that ridge. He two legs broke on the damn deer. I think the front one was broken, the back one by the knee. And then I don't know, was Harry or somebody went with him, and they were trailing it. It crossed the east ridge and went down below, and then it came up toward Doyle's, and then it came over the ridge, and it was going right up the goddamn road. And then Ray was sitting. I was up on the ridge, and Ray was sitting down there taking a 5 on the road there, and the damn buck come running right past him, and he laid him down. But Teddy had him all crippled up, but that's the way he usually shot him. And the luck it was, one of the Piotr guys had a Teddy and Harry, I think, was trailing it. But he'd have got the goddamn deer before they would. He was in there like, because they had him, but the luck was he run onto Ray, and that was the end of it then. And then Harry wounded that one somewhere back there too, and then he got into Spencer's, and him and Tremel went after it. And back on the northwest corner of that goddamn cranberry marsh, they caught up with it. And them two big guys were pooped when they got, and it wasn't that too big of a buck. I don't know where they dragged them when they come through, but they took the steam out of them to get that buck out of there. You get one back, you know, you drag it through those goddamn, they wedge in there on you, and it's just not wide enough, they don't fit in there. They earned that one. And at one time, that was back by Schumann's there too. That's me and Fred and Andrew and Harry. 2 bucks come, one behind the other. I was on the road that goes out to Morgan Lake. I shot at them both. I hit them both, but the one I didn't hit very good. So Harry and Fred took after one, and me and Andrew took after the other one. Well, the one we took after, we didn't go far. We had them, but theirs wasn't hurt. But they got way hell and gone out of the country. I don't know how far they trailed them before they give them up. But Fred always had the idea, you know, where Bob Simons had a hunting cabin somewhere up there on north of Morgan Creek to the north. And so when they quit trailing that buck, then they were going to find Simon's cabin. And they started going. Well, in the meantime, he shot a deer. He didn't know where the hell he knew where they were, but a long ways from any place. there they dragging that deer running around back in the damn woods looking for Bob Simon's cabin. And one name he had was Jokey's Logging Cabin. But everybody they met in the woods when they got back toward Long Lake, nobody heard of Jokey's Log Cabin or a sawmill. But finally they did find the sawmill, and when they found the sawmill, then they found Bob Simon. But he brought them back about 10, 11 o'clock at night with a buck. And they were dragging it around. I would go out and shoot, and no answer. Didn't know what the hell was up. But he did find the place then. They missed it, I guess, by not too much. But shortly after that, then Simon bought up Land O'Lakes, and he didn't come hunting here no more. But they used to kind of pack in. They didn't really have a place in there. There was an old logging camps or something, and then they go to there and they set up, I don't know, they tented or what the hell they had in there. Well, I guess that's about all I know. I guess it was, we lived for this from the day we went home. We were talking about next year. Of course, there was no bow hunting that steered us off. After I got the bow hunting, it kind of enthusiasm for gun changed, the priorities changed, but you didn't build up. I don't know, it was you anticipated the day when you come up here to go gun hunting again. The first month or two, we'd relive the past season and start planning for the next one. It's too bad that you young guys didn't or weren't able to live to hunt with Fred. He was a hunter or a sportsman first, last, and always. He lived for it. Then there's other things he enjoyed, but he lived for the fall. Well, if it wasn't hunting, it was fishing. And I don't care what happened, it always turned out to be something to look back on. Pleasant. It never was nothing to bitching about, you know, whatever happened. You get stuck, well, what the hell, that was an adventure. Run down the road, those days we had the battery under the floorboards, knocked the battery out, haywired in, nothing. Just an adventure. One spring he come in here, I wasn't alone. Don't ever try it in those days. They come in and were birch shacks were below the hill there, and they got in maybe 100 feet, and the car went down to the running board. Then they had to jack it up and get boards off the barn and get it back on the solid ground. But that wasn't nothing to worry about. If you didn't get out that day, it would be another day. Come in at night, and all night he'd grunt and groan. He had a game leg. Next day he was ready to go again. You'd get up to see him, and it was a rainy day, and out home he said, geez, he says, wouldn't it be nice laying in the cabin here in the rain on the roof? You know. Come up here in the winter, colder than hell. Damn near freeze to death overnight. Wind blew in one side, cracking out the other one. And I never seen anybody could drink cold coffee like he could. We'd go make out a rabbit hunting trip to go to mountain. If it was 20 below zero that day, we went hunting rabbits. And he'd come out with his goddamn quart jar of iced coffee and a drinker. Or go fishing the shaft, and you know, when the season opened, the opening day, you went fishing. It was going to be any good or not. You went fishing. Freeze half to death. His goddamn cold fruit jar of coffee. And he'd smoke on his pipe. He'd be sitting in the boat, his eyes shut, you'd think he would be sleeping. He's going like, jerking the line like this. Oh. He'd be dragging one in. Or sit on Winnebago with a daredevil when it was slow and he wasn't biting on the minnows. He'd sit there, just jerk and let it fall back. Do it for an hour on end. Just all at once, hope one will come.
Like to sneak out.
Yeah. Buy a new gun and shoot a pheasant if it was a shotgun. Well, your gun was paid for. Bought a rifle, shot a deer. Your gun was paid for. All you had to do was buy a rod. All you had to do was catch one fish. It was paid for. From then on, you were home free. Then he used to mount the heads. Did it because he liked to do it, not because didn't hardly get the cost of doing it. And somebody must have squealed and the warden come through and he paid a fine. And he said, well, the hell with you then. He didn't mount no more. He mounted quite a few at that. They weren't mounts that lasted like you do today because you didn't tan the hide. Now they tan the hide. Those days we salted them and put a little arsenic and lead on them to kill the moths. If you got them in too dry a place, they were smiling at you at 6 months, you know. And then until the ears started cracking open, but
Yeah.
that's the way you done it then. We had some beautiful heads that came. One of them in particular, I think, went to Brilliant. It was like a moose horn. I think there was close to 30 points on that doggone thing, but they were flat horns. It's beautiful. It's a rack. It probably hung in a tavern down there. I think it went to Brilliant. I don't know though, for sure. But you know, them salesmen would come through with the cheese supply, and well, then the next time through they'd be bringing a head because shit, he did it for $10, $15.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we'd work. I'd go over there in the winter, and we'd all work at it, skinning heads out, and making forms. Those days we used to use Excelsior for a filler. Nailed the skull on a 2x4 and mounted the angle you wanted, and then filled it in with Excelsior. And the head and the big cavities too, and then after a while you finish it up with putty and set the eyes in, form the nose, squeeze it around till you got the shape you wanted. Hang them in the boiler room and dry them. Yeah. He did a lot of them there for a couple of years. I don't know how many. So, the game warden coming, that ended that. The year they were building the shack, and he'd come up here and they'll mark it off, you know. No, we never got nothing done. He was running around in the woods. you get to the Bear Tree pothole, he shot with the 22, he shot a buck across that from the north to the south with the 22, right between the eye. Dropped him right in his tracks, a little 6-pointer. I think my dad was along with him that time.
Yeah, he was.
And they skinned them and took the meat out, and then they had rennet kegs. They probably held 10 or 15 gallon of liquid, and they pounded the rims off and stuffed the meat in that and then put it back together and brought it home.
Never bring him to that home. I wasn't up there that weekend,
But they never accomplished nothing. They'd come up here. Then they'd run over to, they were looking for water for a well, you know. And once some guy, a dowser over at it, picked up a long lake, hauled him over here with his dowser stick, and he showed him 3-4 places where there would be water, but there wasn't no water there. Then when they come to build, how do you know cement mixture, you know, no power, what the hell you do? We didn't have auxiliary motors or nothing then. So we dug the gravel out of that. I think it's settling in there now. We use it after a while, we use it for a dump. And mix the cement and the gravel dry in the trench, and then we poured water in there and slopped it around, and that's how we made the footing. So when the old shack started giving out, that was one of the reasons there wasn't, some places wasn't very good footing underneath. That's how we made it. Well, there was places when we started laying block, we had to shim them up 4 or 5 inches that we were off. Oh, you know. But after we got going, we went to town on her. Yeah. And then they took the old wood floor out of the old shack. All it was slabs, carried it in the floorboards, laid the slab, and we get in here in July, and the goddamn thistles were growing through ceiling high. Well, then Harry lined her up once, and they got I don't know if it was 1 load of ready mix. Was you here, Irma, when they run the floor?
No, I wasn't here that day.
I wasn't here either, but they run the floor. They probably made it in 1 load, I suppose. I think.
No, they had either 2 or 3.
Oh,
They only bought about 3 yards at a time from Albino.
They came from Wabino. I don't even remember where it come from. But it come quite a ways. And well, then next time it come, they had the cement floor in.
Moved all the fence outside.
Boy, then we were living in luxury. For a year or 2 until the frost freezed the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then our heating, we got the wise idea, we burning waste oil. That was an adventure. They had a damn drum hung up there on the timbers, and a copper tube running down into the stove, and then by burning some wood, you know, there was a fire in there, and they keep dribbling that waste oil in. Well, if it would have been strained, it would have worked halfway decent. But about 2, 3 in the morning, you'd hear somebody hammering, pounding. They were trying to shake the slugs out of it. We got by with that for a couple of years before they threw that out. That really, when it worked darn good. It worked better than that oil burner we had. There ain't a good enough draft for the oil burner up here. That never did work right. But that's waste oil on that, but you know how it comes out, you know, that's not too good. In those days anyway, them motors in the cars, they
Time was gasoline in it.
That and the 55-gallon drum sat outside, and there was water in it.
Yeah, then there'd be water and ice in the damn
slugs
thing.
of ice in there when we poured up on top. And
You'd wake up at night, you hear somebody